No, it's all good. I guess we're live streaming.
Hey, Kendra, tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, we don't usually live stream pujas, but hey, I guess there's a first time for everything. No, it's totally fine. And I just wanted to place the practice a little bit for folks, the practice that we're going to do, so that you know kind of where it comes from and what the reasons are behind the practice. I think sometimes pujas, especially ones that we don't do very often, they can seem maybe like a little bit esoteric or, not the most relatable. So sometimes just, 5 or 6 minutes of introductory remarks to place it can be very helpful. So with that in mind, I'm going to open the images that I wanted to show you. And so maybe the first thing I can do is ask all of you a bit of a question. So if I say the Buddha's word as instruction lineage, if I say the Buddha's word as instruction lineage, what lineage is that? And what's another word that we would use for that?
Kadam.
Yes, exactly. Kadam. So ka is the holy word. So the word of the Buddha. And dam are instructions. So when we say the Buddha's word as instruction lineage, we are speaking of the Kadam lineage. And when we speak of the Kadam lineage, one important thing to know, I think, is that this Kadam lineage exists not just in our Gelug tradition, but you also find it in the Kagyu tradition in particular, and many of the instructions are in the Sakya and the Nyingma traditions as well. But Gampopa, who's very important in the Kagyu tradition, he trained as a Kadam monk before meeting Milarepa, and he carried many aspects of that lineage with him. And of course, Lama Tsongkhapa was greatly influenced by the Kadam lineage, especially Master Atisha. And so the Lam Rim tradition, the stages of the path tradition that we have, it comes through Atisha. And so the Kadam is actually divided into two lineages. There's the Kadam Pacha and the Kadam Pucha. So the Kadam Pacha is the father Buddha's word as instruction lineage. And different historians talk about it differently, like Tibetan historians, but normally when we speak of the father lineage of the Buddha's words as instruction, we are talking about the teachings of Atisha and Dromtunpa in particular. Just see if I can share my screen and show you a few images. Yes, so here is Master Atisha, who you're probably all familiar with. He's often called Joje by Tibetans, the precious master. He's kind of the forerunner of the Buddha's word as instruction lineage, which was in essence a kind of back to basics movement that happened in Tibet. And then he had a disciple, Dromtunpa, who, sorry, that picture is a little bit small, but hopefully you'll notice that he has kind of long hair and he's not dressed in robes. He was actually a layman. And he was, very important for transmitting the instructions. So the teachings of these two masters are often called the Kadam Pacha, the father dharma of the Buddha's word as instruction lineage. When we speak of the Kadam Pucha, or the son lineage of the Buddha's words as instruction lineage, we're speaking of beings like Geshe Chekawa, Geshe Sharawa, and those beings who came after. And so why am I speaking about this today? Because the Buddha Shakyamuni practice that we're going to do together, it comes from a formulation of sadhanas known as the 4 deities of the Buddha's word as instruction lineage. So when we speak about the 4 deities of the Buddha's word as instruction lineage, we are speaking about, firstly, the teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. So that's the first of the 4 deities. Then we are talking about the one who is known as the unbiased one, which is Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. And then we have the protector, who is Miyoa. That's a better image of him. So Miyoa is also known as Achala, and he's identifiable not just by his dark complexion, but by the one knee that's folded up like this. And if you want more information about him, on the Himalayan Art Resources website, there's a great video that you can watch about Achala. He's also very popular in Japan, incidentally. And then the final of the four, and he is, his job is the protector. And the final of the four deities is Aryatara, the savioress. And she is the female embodiment of enlightened activity, with whom I'm sure most of you are familiar. So in terms of these four deities, there are sets of sadhanas and empowerments that you find in different traditions. So in the, I believe, Sakya tradition, and in the Nyingma and Drikung Kagyu traditions, you'll find the four Kadampa deities transmitted as initiations in a series of initiations called the Dam Ngakzu, which translates as something like the treasury of precious instructions. In our Geluk lineage, these four come in a series of initiations, among other series, known as the Rinchen Gyatso. So they are in the Rinchen Gyatso series of initiations. If any of you have that beautiful book, Deities of Tibetan Buddhism, which is many pages long with many images that look like this, like small cards, with the name of the deity below, this is actually a book listing all of the deities from that catalog of the Rinchen Gyatso. So in terms of how the initiations are transmitted, sometimes lamas give all four together. Like one of Geshe-la's teachers, Khenso Delek Rinpoche, he often gives all four of these together. But you can also give each four of them separately. Each of these deities has a sadhana associated with it. The sadhanas are very unique because there's a first sort of standard sadhana with a front generation and a self generation and the 7 limbs and all of the things that you could expect. But then there's a second part of the sadhana, which is known as transmission. In the transmission, you visualize your guru in the form of the deity, so like Shakyamuni or Tara, for example, or Achala, in the form of the guru, in the form of the deity. And then you imagine receiving the transmission of the particular sadhana and practice and the associated scriptures. So the sadhanas are quite unique. However, for the second part, the transmission part of the sadhana and the visualization, you do need to have the empowerment. So that brings me to the discussion of our practice today. So when I looked at the various Shakyamuni Buddha sadhanas that FPMT has available, there's a very beautiful practice by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I think called a daily meditation on Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, or something along those lines, similar title to that. But this one was a little bit short for our purposes. Then we have a sadhana that was translated by Martin Wilson, by the great composer Ngawang Palden of Urga. This sadhana is 212 pages long. So although I had originally thought that we would do that, when I remembered how long it was, I thought that might not work for our purposes. So what I thought that we would do is we would begin with the first part, the part that we can all do together, of the Buddha Shakyamuni sadhana, from the sadhana of the 4 deities of the Kadampas. And then we would close with some special aspiration prayers that are contained in the Ngawang Palden of Urga sadhana. Specifically, there's some prayers, auspicious prayers related to the deeds of Shakyamuni Buddha. And there's also a prayer to be reborn in the Tushita Pure Land, which is said to be very auspicious to recite on this day. So that was my idea of what we would all do together. And it will be a short session, but we will try to meditate on all of the key points together. So I think most people are familiar with the refuge and bodhicitta verse because it's not included in the sadhana. What we do is we actually begin with that refuge and bodhicitta, and then we go to this verse that says, to all the tathagatas, lions of men. One thing that's good to know, because you see in this medicine Buddha sadhana as well, you'll see like bowing to the lion of the Shakyas, who is in who in his virtuous wish and noble purpose surpasses all the Buddhas, I will here compose his method of attainment. So normally we don't recite this. Why don't we recite it? Because this is actually the author of the text. The author of the text usually composes a homage to kind of amass positive karma to be able to kind of correctly and completely execute the composition of the sadhana. So I think in the case of the medicine Buddha sadhana, it starts with something like Om Namo Munindraya or something like this. So this is a similar verse of homage that in that case, Losang Chökyi Gyaltsen, one of the greatest kind of composers in the Gelug tradition, he composed that as like sort of a homage and an oath to compose. So also you normally, if you go to the monastery and you hear them do the medicine Buddha puja, like at Sera or something, they won't recite that verse also. So just to let you know. So we'll do the refuge and bodhicitta in Tibetan together, and then we'll follow the text. Sangye chedan sogi chenam lai jangju bardu dani gyabzu ji dagi jinso gi pesanam gi jola penjir sangye drubar sho Sangye chedan sogi chenam lai Jangju bardu dani gyabzu ji dagi jinzo gibe sanangi jola penjir sangye jopar sho sangye chedang sogi chenam lai Jangju bardu dani gyabzu ji Dagi jinzo gipe sonam gi jola penjir sangye jopar sho. So we'll be reciting mostly in English together today. So let's just take a moment to settle the mind and bring forth the motivation for today's practice. And maybe recollecting the significance of this day that the Buddha traveled to the Deva realm of the 33 to teach not only his mother, but many of the other Deva beings residing in that world, and then came back down to earth to continue to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Why did he do this? For the benefit of sentient beings. And so we pray that all of our practices today may be connected with this motivation of bodhicitta, to be able to achieve the unsurpassed state of enlightenment, because we understand that once we achieve that state of enlightenment, we will be able to guide all sentient beings to complete freedom from suffering. So just take a moment to contemplate. Let's recite together. To all the Tathagatas, lions of men, as many as there are in the 10 directions of the universe, and of the 3 times, to all of them without exception, I pay homage with clear devotion of body, speech, and mind. Through the power of this prayer of good action, bowing down to all the conquerors with mentally manifested bodies, numerous as the atoms of the universe, I make full obeisance to all Buddhas. Considering all the conquerors to be gathered, like the countless atoms on a particle of dust, surrounded by bodhisattvas, and filling the infinity of Dharmadhatu. And telling the qualities of all the conquerors, with all sounds of ocean-like branches of melody, all oceans of inexhaustible praise, to all the Sugatas I sing praises. And as we recite the verses of offering, do your best to visualize these offerings filling the extent of space. To all the conquerors I make offerings of the loveliest flowers of beautiful garlands, symbols, scented water, the precious canopy, the brightest butter lamps, and the finest incense. Fine raiment and the most fragrant scents, and incense powders piled high as Mount Meru, meticulously prepared and arranged as perfectly as possible, these I offer to all the Buddhas. Intending all such offerings vast and perfect for all the Buddhas with the strength of confidence and good actions, I make offerings with obeisance to all the conquerors. So we've prostrated, we've made offerings, and now we're going to do the confession. So just recollect maybe something unwholesome that you did recently that you regret, and imagine that similarly all of the unwholesome actions we've accumulated in the past, and lay those bare in confession as a way to purify. Whatever faults I have committed by body, speech, or mind, under the influence of desire, hatred, and ignorance, I confess each one of them. I rejoice at the merit of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, and of all the Pratyeka Buddhas, Arhats of practitioners, and all beings. I exhort all the protectors who illuminate the 10 directions of the universe, who have attained Buddhahood free from attachment through the successive stages of awakening, to turn the incomparable wheel of Dharma. Folding my hands together, I pray to those who would demonstrate parinirvana, to remain for the sake of the happiness and benefit of all beings, for kalpas as many as the atoms of the universe. What little merit I have accumulated by obeisance, offering, confessing, rejoicing, exhortation, and prayer, all of it, I dedicate to the goal of enlightenment. Okay, and the refuge verse comes here, but just once. So we'll recite it in English this time. In the Supreme Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until the attainment of enlightenment. By the merit of practicing generosity and the other paramitas, may I attain Buddhahood to benefit sentient beings.
Kedripla?
Yeah.
Somebody's requesting to make the PDF a little larger. Can you?
Yes, no, we can do. It
Great.
just means I'm moving around on the page a little more, but yeah, I mean, it's actually good for me too. Is that better, do you think? All right. So as we begin this visualization, if you have received like a 2-day full initiation into a practice of Kriya Tantra, you can visualize yourself as Shakyamuni Buddha. But if you haven't, you can just visualize him in front of you, following the same steps. And it's a bit confusing because there's a self-generation and a front generation in the practice, but we actually start with the self-generation. So as the preliminary for this self-generation, although it's not here explicitly, it's very important to begin recollecting emptiness. Like in many sadhanas, we have Om Sabhava Shuddha Dharma Sabhava Shuddho Hang. And so we should just take a moment to imagine that our ordinary environment, all of the ordinary objects, the place where we dwell and so forth, that these dissolve into the vast sphere of emptiness. And we understand that when we speak of emptiness, it's an emptiness of inherent existence. So just according to your own best understanding, contemplate that for a moment, and then we'll build the visualization from that as a beginning point. So let's begin with the visualization. From the expanse of voidness, the letter A is manifested in my heart. From this appears on a moon disk a yellow letter the light of which pervades my body. I am transfigured into the form of Shakyamuni. My body is the color of the purest gold. My right hand touches the earth. My left rests in the gesture of even meditation. My legs are crossed in the Vajra posture. I appear as one who has renounced the world, exhibiting to perfection all the major signs and minor marks of Buddhahood. So these are the things like the Dharma wheels in the Buddha's palms and his feet, the special circular formation of his hair, his Ushnisha, these various signs of enlightenment. So exhibiting to perfection all the major signs and minor marks of Buddhahood, and am arrayed in the triple robes of monkhood. I radiate immeasurable beams of light while resting in the state of meditative equipoise. From the upon the moon disk in my heart, rays of light go forth to invoke the presence of Shakyamuni and the assembly of wisdom deities. So unusual feature of the sadhana. For a Kriya Tantra practice, we as Shakyamuni are also inviting Shakyamuni to appear in front of us. Vajra Sama Ja. Ja Hum Bam. I meditate that in my forehead there is a white letter Om, in my throat a red letter A, and in my heart a blue letter Hum. The last of these seed syllables is surrounded by the garland of the mantra. So is everybody clear on the visualization? So your Shakyamuni Buddha or Shakyamuni Buddha is in front of you if you haven't received a 2-day initiation. And at the forehead is a white letter Om, at the throat a red letter A, and at the heart a blue letter Hum. And then around the blue letter Hum, so that's the last of the seed syllables at the heart, is a garland of the mantra, just like a flower garland, made up of the letters Om Muni Muni Maha Muniye Soha. If you're a Sanskrit stickler, you can say Om Muni Muni Maha Muniye Svaha. So that's actually the Sanskrit way to do it. And so as we recite this mantra, there's different visualizations that you can do. To keep it simple for people who aren't familiar, who haven't done this practice before, if you can do the self-generation, just imagine lights and nectar radiating out of your body and entering the bodies of all sentient beings as purifying them, and recite the mantra. Or You can do a purification of body, speech, and mind using the letters Om, Ah, and Hum and the associated colors individually. The other thing that you can do is just think of Buddha Shakyamuni in front of you. And as you're reciting the mantra, imagine receiving the lights and rays of nectar. So it's 7:24. If people are okay, how about we recite the mantra until 7:30? And so I'll recite it audibly a few times, and then all of us can recite on our own. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Yeso. Om Muni Muni. Om Muni Muni. So let's continue with the recitation. To the wisdom being before me, whatever in the countless regions of the world there is of offerings pleasing to the senses, I lay them out with reverence and offer to the Buddhas and their heirs. Sarva Tathagata Saparivara Vyavaja Agam Padyan Pupe Dupe Aloke Gende Nide Shabda Pratija Swaha. So now we dedicate the merit. Don't worry, there's more prayers coming. This is just the ending of this visualization. Gewa diyin yodu da lam tupe wambu jujune jowa chija malu pa deyi sala gopara sho. By the merit of this action, may I swiftly accomplish Buddha Shakyamuni, and not leaving out a single being, may I establish them all in his level. So for those of you who are maybe attentive, you'll notice that this prayer resembles another one very much. Does anyone know which one it resembles? One that goes, Gewa Diyi Nyodu Da Lama Sanje Drupju Ne. By the merit of this action, may I swiftly achieve the state of the Guru deity, and not leaving out a single being, may I establish them all in this level. So with each of these sadhanas of the four deities of the Kadampas, what you'll find is a similar dedication with that particular deity. And so now you also know that when you're pressed for time, perhaps if you're doing a very simple mantra recitation like of Tara or Medicine Buddha, for example, and you really just have time to do refuge and bodhicitta and recite the mantra and do a dedication, this is the perfect dedication to do. And you can adapt it according to whichever deity you're practicing. So you'll see it in many places as you look at different sadhana practices. And so this is the very long sadhana that I told you about. It's translated by Martin Wilson, who's an excellent translator. He translated a beautiful book on Tara, which I think it maybe even have come out in the 80s. It's a very popular book on Tara. And so the practice is a very extensive offering to Shakyamuni Buddha that contains all of the 7 limbs in a very extensive way. So for example, when you do the limb of offering, you do the offering of the 2 waters, the 5 offerings, music, objects of sensual pleasure, a crown, then you're offering each of the individual monastic articles, the 16 goddesses, the 7 royal emblems. And so it goes through all of these offerings with beautiful poetic verses. So if you have a day at home and you want to engage in a practice, this is a wonderful and accessible one to do. But we will don't have time to do the entire practice, so we will go to some of the dedications and verses of homage that are contained within it. So one of the important things to do on holy days such as Lababduche, the descent from heaven day, is to recite prayers of aspiration. And one of the most sort of popular types of aspiration prayers to recite are those to be reborn in a Pure Land. So probably most of you are familiar with Demun, which is commonly recited in the Gelug tradition, the prayer to be reborn in Sukhavati. But actually, this is also a very beautiful prayer, in this case, to be reborn in the Tushita heaven. So we will recite this together today. Today, before the deity host of conqueror Shakyamuni and their retinue here invoked, recollecting the past lives and biography of the Tathagata Shakyamuni, I have with great devotion paid homage and made offering to them, confessed my sins before them, rejoiced in virtue, exhorted, and made requests to them, and so forth. By the force of whatever merit I have thus created, and of their power, glory, and inspiration, may the precious doctrine of the conqueror and the second conqueror spread and flourish for a long time. So in this case, the conqueror is Buddha Shakyamuni, and the second conqueror is Lama Tsongkhapa. May the lifespan and deeds of the holy beings who uphold the doctrine increase and develop more and more. May the activities of teaching and practice in the host of Sangha communities flourish more and more like the waxing moon. May the life, merits, wealth, power, and prestige of the patrons of the doctrine develop more and more like the depth of a river in summer. Thanks to their power and ability, may all sentient beings have perfect happiness, and may all their rightful aims be spontaneously fulfilled like fruits of a wish-fulfilling tree. In every world, may not even the name occur of any external or internal harm, such as sickness, famine, injury by enemies, or hindering spirits, fighting, and disputes. May good, auspicious signs arise continually, such as rain falling at the right time, crops and livestock always doing well, and mutual concord of ruler and minister and subjects. May I and all sentient beings always pass our time solely in white, wholesome activities, such as honoring and worshiping the three jewels, while holding them superior, living in the morality of the 10 virtues, teaching and learning about the 3 collections of scriptures, and practicing the 3 trainings. Thanks to the power of this, may we never be reborn in the 8 inopportune states, such as the 3 ill destinies, the 3 lower realms, but obtain a succession of excellent human rebirths in which we can follow the good path. And now's the aspiration for the Pure Land. In particular, when the time for dying from this life draws near, may an intense faith focused upon the Regent, the invincible Lord Maitreya and his children manifest in us, and, dying without the slightest suffering of body or mind, may we take birth miraculously from a precious lotus in Yiga Chudzin in Tushita. So, in my understanding, Tushita is quite a vast Pure Land, from which different deities descend, in particular Maitreya, but those of you who are familiar with the Guru Yoga practice of Lama Tsongkhapa, you'll also know that we visualize Lama Tsongkhapa and Gyaltsabje and Kedrukje, his 2 disciples, descending from Tushita. And my understanding is that Yiga Chudzin is a particular neighborhood in Tushita. It's kind of like the best real estate in Tushita. And this is where you are kind of like the closest to the holy beings. So not only do you want to be reborn in Tushita in general, but you want to be reborn in Yiga Chudzin. It's like the bridal path of Tushita. Just kidding. So as we continue, they'll talk about the different inhabitants of the realm of Tushita, such as the bodhisattvas and so forth. As soon as we are born there, may we see directly the faces of the conqueror Lord Maitreya, the bodhisattvas, Ganganamala, and Venerable Manjushri Garbha, and many other Buddhas and bodhisattvas, and receive infinite advice and instruction from them. May we understand their meaning correctly and put it into practice, so that the special paths such as detachment, bodhicitta, and right view arise in our minds at all times. Through this, when the Regent, the invincible Lord Maitreya, displays the deeds of a supreme Nirmanakaya on earth, may we be born as the first of his retinue, enjoy insatiably the nectar of his holy speech, and receive the prophecy of our highest supreme awakening. May also the roots of virtue to be so dedicated, not degenerate, in the least through adverse conditions, such as anger, but become totally pure causes for whatever desired objects the conquerors of the three times and their children have dedicated or will dedicate roots of virtue towards. When we make dedications such as this, we know that if we give rise to anger, that can damage the wholesome karma that we've accumulated. So this helps to protect that amass of wholesome karma from being degenerated when we get, angry or annoyed with someone we find difficult or with a situation. I've invoked the deity host of the King of Sages, prostrated, offered, requested. Through these virtues, let me, before the sages regent Maitreya, enjoy abundance of Mahayana teaching. When above the hill of Bodh Gaya rises that king of sun, the Lord Maitreya, may the lotus of my wisdom open and satisfy great swarms of fortunate bees. So I believe that it is said that in this world that we inhabit, the enlightened beings will all be connected with Bodh Gaya. So just as Shakyamuni was enlightened there and did many important things there, so too Maitreya will become enlightened there and do many important things there. Then, pleased, may the conqueror Maitreya, setting his right hand upon my head, prophesy my highest supreme bodhi, and let me win it soon for all beings' sake. So you can choose one of the two prayers. You can also recite the Daemon here, the prayer to be reborn in Sukhavati. But I thought that because a lot of people might not be familiar with this prayer for rebirth into Shida, it would be nice to share it. So continue with some praises and dedications. To the Lord of the Doctrine, the Bhagavan teacher and host of root and lineage gurus, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, hearers, Pratyekas, protectors, with my three doors I pay homage in great devotion. I think we have time to recite this. On this occasion of making homage, offering, and request to the deity hosts of the peerless king of the Shakyas and their retinue, we sentient beings of evil time, of vile, impure behavior, because of recklessness and not having things, have made errors and mistakes, such as conduct of body, speech, and mind, that is mingled with defilements, small, poor, and unclean offerings, and inability to perform the rite exactly. We ask the teacher, the king of sages, and the other greatly compassionate Arya beings to be patient with all this. Will you please think of us compassionately, accept us forgivingly, and consent to grant inspiration so that now and henceforth it may not be an obscuration for us. So whenever we engage in a puja, when we engage in a mantra recitation, we always recite this or another similar verse of confession. And that just means that, during moments of inattention, moments where we may remember something that upset us earlier in the day, just to make sure that that, again, doesn't contaminate our merits. So we'll recite the auspicious verses. Possessor of perfection like a golden mountain, a lord of the three worlds who's left the three defilements, a Buddha with eyes resembling full-grown lotus petals, this is the first auspicious good sign for the world. The highest of what he has taught, unshakable, famed in the triple world, honored by gods and humans. The most superior Dharma, calming every being, this is the second auspicious good sign for the world. An excellent Sangha, rich in wealth of righteous learning, an object of worship for gods, men, and asuras. The best assembly, base of conscience and prosperity. This is the third auspicious good sign for the world. Highest, best teacher, greatest of the great, Son, Lord of Dharma, conqueror. Through your inspiration, quell harmful foes, the maras, and all kinds of hindrance. Day and night, be our auspicious seat of prosperity. Highest, best Dharma of true reality, nectar of true Dharma, truth. Through your inspiration, free us from faults. Let our good collections develop. Day and night be our auspicious seat of prosperity. Sangha, shining splendor of precious qualities. Buddha children, true helpers. Through your inspiration, quell our defilements and sufferings, the foes that torment us. Day and night be our auspicious seat of prosperity. Giving charity, keeping of morality, practice of patience, undertaking energy, concentration, realizing true mode of being. Let us here now have the blessing of these six, so the six paramitas, the six perfections. Living a century, seeing 100 teachers, long life, health, and perfect happiness. Expertness in the supreme vehicle. Let us here now have these auspicious things. So that's the praises and requests to Shakyamuni Buddha, and we'll continue with some further auspicious prayers for the flourishing of the teaching and the long life of our teachers. Jiden gande pende malu ba gangle jungwe zamba yuje no kanjin zume tenzin jazo jo kuze tenzin duje lunju zo. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the granting, wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. So this is a prayer not specifically for the long life of His Holiness, but more that all of His Holiness's wishes can be effortlessly fulfilled. And there's actually a very nice tune to this prayer. And I first heard this tune sung by Kandrala, who probably many of you are familiar with, a very great master in a woman's body. And she has a very beautiful singing voice. My voice is absolutely wretched, but in the hopes of trying to inspire you to recite this prayer, I will do my best to approximate the tune of this verse, and then so that you know how it's recited. And especially as His Holiness ages, especially as the situation in Tibet is what it is, it's very important to make this prayer that all of his aspirations are fulfilled. O ni ni ge ju du ju be je je se je gong je ten je na be mo ten je ya zo so wa de zo she de so. Savior of the land of snow's teachings and transmigratory beings, who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder, Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Now, the prayer for our dear Lama and spiritual director, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Tu zu jiang xin jiang gen ge wei ten yong be wei gu do bo zi chok zung gu wei le mo pa da so de Gundu Shakten Sho. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunatha's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish the magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones. So that's the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. So that is the end of our practice, but let's do a general dedication together, and then maybe I'll ask Dave to turn off the live stream, and if people want to share a dedication for somebody specific in their lives who's having obstacles or something, please feel free. So through the merits that we've accumulated in this practice, may all of the wars and conflicts in the world be completely pacified. Through the merits that we've accumulated in this practice, may all the diseases, pandemics, the imbalances in the elements, and the environmental degradation be completely cleared away. Through the merits we've accumulated, may the sun of happiness shine upon all 6 types of beings in samsara without differentiation. Through the merits that we've accumulated, may all of the holy teachers teaching the sublime Buddha Dharma have long lives and be free of obstacles. And may all those who contribute to the happiness of sentient beings, who work for sentient beings with a kind heart and pure intention, may they have long lives and be free of obstacles.